Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Deku Married May, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
All Might was stunned. He wasn't quite sure what to expect to see from Inko Midoriya's final gadget, but he was pretty sure that if they called it a gadget, that it would be some kind of mechanical object, a brace for his arm, some headband that could protect against mental attacks, something like that. So why, instead of a gadget, was a pair of pills inside the box? Principal Nezu, was your tea spiked? The critter laughed out loud. No, but I don't blame you for your reaction. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm calling these simple pills a gadget. The man nodded. You see, All Might, these pills are classified as gadgets because they're actually an amalgamation of power and energy-enhancing materials from destroyed gadgets. They're safe to consume, but take a couple minutes to take effect. All Might took a closer look at the pills. So, if I take these pills, will I get enough power to repel back the hero killer? Nezu nodded. But the pills won't work for long, and once their effect's finished, you'll be locked on your weakened form for 24 hours. All Might nearly dropped the pills in shock. That's way too big of a risk to take. And sending Melissa's shield to distract the hero killer wasn't a big risk. All Might, but quickly regained his composure. Of course the principal knew what he did, he was practically the smartest thing in the world, how wouldn't he know? If you want, we can cancel the classes you would have given today until the effect of the pills has worn off, and you can return to your buff form. Nezu scratched his chin. Although, considering our school was trespassed by a serial killer, we may need to cancel the rest of the day in order to improve our defenses. Nezu shrugged. Anyway, take the pills now, and in a few minutes, you should gain enough power to deal with the hero killer. All Might took a deep breath, grabbed a cup of tea served by Nezu, and he swallowed the pills before he sat down and waited for them to take effect. I just hope these pills take effect before that guy hurts Melissa too badly. She'll manage him on her own. Nezu put her arms behind his back. After all, you picked her as the 9th inheritor of One for All for a reason. All Might smiled wide. Yes, I did. Stain took a breath of disappointment at the teachers of UA, some who were tied up in a razorhead scarf, while the rest stood back, catching their breath with burn marks on their outfits. This is truly saddening, the hero killer stated. To have so many fakers try and fail to prove their worth in this world of heroes. People like you are an insult to heroism. Says the guy who goes around killing heroes. A razorhead stated sternly. Stain huffed. I don't kill heroes, I kill fakers, who spread a bad name of heroism to the masses. Then, he brandished his knives. Which, in fact, sounds like a very apt description of all of you right now. Hero killer Stain. Suddenly, someone jumped off from the second floor and landed right in front of the damaged teachers. This someone was Melissa, still in her uniform but wearing her arm brace. Who are you? Stain sternly asked. And why have you come for the said of these fakers? I'm Melissa Shield, Melissa answered as she clenched her fists. As for why I'm here, well. Melissa smiled as she took a battle stance. Aren't heroes supposed to put their lives on the line for the sake of others? This one. Stain smirked. This one is a real hero. Melissa sprung forward and shot a punch, which Stain blocked with his swords. They got slightly cracked from impact, which sent Stain slightly far away, but not much else happened after that. It is sad to think that I have to hurt you, maybe even kill you, Stain said with a smile. Your words and actions are proving to be more heroic than the fakers behind you. Melissa raised an amused eyebrow. Well, thank you, but I'm afraid that's not going to deter me from giving you a fistful of justice. Melissa sprung forward again and threw another punch, this one being dodged by the hero killer. He gripped his damaged sword and swung it, but Melissa simply kicked the blade hard enough to snap it in two, the sharp point landing far away. Stain quickly swung his other sword, but Melissa jumped over it and swung her kick down, hitting Stain right in the head. However, the hero killer simply pushed Melissa back and threw some knives at her, which she dodged with a roll and a couple jumps. Except for the last one. Ouch. Stain bolted straight for the knife, grabbed it, and put it close to his mouth as he revealed his tongue. He's going to lick that after it was on the ground. Wait a minute, he's heading for the bloodied part. Sensing danger, Melissa dashed for Stain and kicked the bloodied knife away, before jumping away from his blade swing. She didn't get far before her wound acted up and made her drop to the ground, though. Impressive, Stain flashed a smile. You figured out my quirk requires me to ingest a person's blood, so you sped up and stopped me from consuming it. Actually, I never thought that had anything to do with your quirk, I just thought you were a weirdo. Is what Melissa wanted to say, but. Why yeah, that's right. You're nowhere near as subtle as you think you are. Selfless and intuitive, you really are worthy of being a hero. Stain took a deep breath. It truly is sad that fate decided we have to fight. Undeterred by his words, Melissa ran towards Stain and threw another punch, only for it to be caught by Stain, whose gauntlet's acidic underside caused Melissa to scream in pain as she backed away and clutched her hand. I'm sorry that I have to pull such a dirty trick on a genuine hero such as yourself, Stain remarked as he lowered his gauntlet. But I need to send a message to the world of heroics. Those gauntlets, they have a similar acidic property like Mina's. Melissa grimaced. Wait, could that mean? Hearing the sound of a metal being picked up, Melissa bolted straight for Stain and, enhancing her punch with one for all, she swung it and struck the blade so hard, it shattered to pieces. With Stain distracted by the sudden attack, Melissa then moved her percentage of one for all from her fist to her leg, and kicked the hero killer hard enough to send him crashing right into a wall. The pain on her leg acted up, though, and she dispersed one for all as she got on her knees. And then Stain came out of the wall, saw it crack and create an opening, then ignored it and walked towards Melissa. He's not going into the school. Isn't that the reason he's here? Melissa shook her head. Stain. Where did you get those gauntlets? The serial killer stopped and looked at his gauntlets. They're normal gauntlets my apprentice modified so their underside had the same ability as herself. The teacher's eyes widened, and Melissa began shaking as she quickly processed what that meant. Mina, is your apprentice? It appears the cat is out of the bag, Nezu remarked, looking at the. Stain has revealed the identity of his inside agent. Stain had an inside agent in the school. All Might asked, earning a nod from the critter. Who is it? Nezu took a sip of his tea. Mina Ashido. All Might felt a chill run down his spine. Young Ashido did seem a little more abrasive and antagonistic than his other students, but he figured it was the same case as with young Bakugo, that she just so happened to have an abrasive personality despite her heroic ambitions. Never would he have thought, let alone humored the idea, that she was actually the apprentice of the most infamous hero killer in Japan. Now only one question remained. What does this mean for young Ashido? She'll be detained and questioned about her relationship with Stain, as well as her goals. Nezu took another sip of his tea. Depending on what she says, we might need to put her under rehabilitation at best, or expel her at worst. All Might winced, but he understood. Even in the best case scenario, having young Ashido run free simply wasn't an option, especially if a little idea All Might had that moment was true. Ugh. Oh my, Nezu laughed. It seems the pills are starting to take effect. Melissa kept shaking as the hero killer arrived to her, and helped her stand up. Even so, he did nothing as the girl kept trembling, her eyes showing a vivid display of disbelief. It can't be true. Mina can't. Why you can't? If it makes you feel better, true heroine, I didn't force her to do anything, Stain sighed, his tone lacking any hint of malice or dishonesty. I found her on the streets, abandoned by her family and left to rot by the fake heroes of society. Melissa kept trembling as Stain took out a knife. I took her in, taught her the cruel ways of the world, and in return, she helped me better prepare myself to deal with the fakers that destroyed the innocent child she used to be. It can't be, even if the world is cruel, even if the world is tough. Mina couldn't, she wouldn't. Suddenly, Melissa dropped to the ground, finding her body almost completely paralyzed. She could at least get up, but that wasn't much comfort when she couldn't even stand fully straight up. Then she looked up, and saw Stain was holding a bloodied knife, retracting his tongue as he looked at her. What? As a token of good faith, let me tell you what my quirk actually does. Stain saved the knife and turned around. By ingesting someone's blood, I can paralyze them for a set amount of time, with the resulting time depending on their blood type. The ones to stay paralyzed the longest are B types, followed by AB, A, and O as the one who recovered the quickest. Melissa cursed her blood type falling somewhere in the middle. And the longest anybody can stay paralyzed is 8 minutes, Stain turned to the captured teachers. Now if you excuse me, I have to deal with the fakers who got lucky enough to get you as a student. Not if I have something to say about it. Stain flinched, and a smile soon formed on his face. No way. Melissa raised her head, her eyes gaining a glimmer of hope. Could it be? Soon after, a titanic figure jumped off the top floor of the school, and landed in front of Stain, his muscular frame leaving little room for doubt what his identity was, despite him being covered in shadows. All Might, the serial killer exclaimed in joy. You Uncle Might, Melissa whispered, shedding a single tear. Stain turned to face Melissa, shocked at hearing someone call All Might that, but he shook it off and turned back to the muscular behemoth. All Might, it's truly an honor to meet. All Might said nothing, but he did glance at the defeated teachers, and narrowed his eyes. Go ahead, All Might. You're the only hero worth killing me. Stain stated with giddy excitement. Make me pay for what I've done today. I will make you pay, All Might spoke, a slight reverb on his voice. But I will not kill you. Stain looked shocked at this statement, for about a second before he smiled and closed his eyes. Of course you wouldn't kill me, you're the ultimate hero, after all. All Might reeled his fist back. I will send you to Tartarus now. Stain lowered his head. Okay, do what you wish. Tartarus smash. All Might shot his fist right at the serial killer, and he was sent flying, presumably straight to the prison named Tartarus. With him gone, he looked at Melissa, helped her stand up, and hugged her. You Uncle Might. Stain H had an eye inside agent. Melissa said, trying to fight back the paralysis so she could return the hug. It W was. Young Ashido, I know, All Might responded. Principal Nezu figured it out a moment ago, and he went to detain young Ashido personally. He was watching. Melissa frowned. W what about, the students? They evacuated, All Might's form began releasing steam. They're all safe now, everybody's safe now. Melissa noticed the steam, and grew concerned. Uncle Might. Suddenly, All Might burst, releasing a steam cloud that covered both himself and Melissa. The cloud dissipated shortly after, revealing that despite the transformation, he was still hugging Melissa. Except he was back in his skeletal form now. Uncle Might. Yeah, alright, thanks for letting me know. Click. All Might took a deep breath and sat down before scanning the room. He was currently in Melissa's apartment, with the girl herself, Hatsume, Midoriya, and Inko sharing the room with him. They all sat at the table, the remaining visitors and the room's owner staring at the man. Young Ashido has been successfully detained, and is being interrogated as we speak. Thanks to help from a student known as Hitoshi Shinsu, the principal believes she won't be able to lie her way through the interrogation. Midoriya scratched his chin. Hitoshi Shinsu, that name sounded familiar. Right, it was the boy whose quirk announced itself through bells. If it could stop someone from lying, maybe those who heard the bells found themselves unable to lie for a given amount of time. Yeah, that sounded just about right. I still can't believe Mina was working with Stain all along. Melissa frowned and lowered her head. I was looking at her since the first day of school, and I never even noticed. Young Melissa, I'm pretty sure everybody was caught off guard by young Ashido's relation with the hero killer. Especially me, Midoriya blurted. I mean, I was already wary of Mina because of how she hurt Kendo, but this just came completely out of the blue. Speaking of that, I saw you fighting her in a honestly terrifying form, Hatsume spoke, getting everyone's attention. What exactly happened that turned you into that white, screeching monster? Midoriya lowered his head and took a deep breath. Okay, so, I caught Mina talking with Stain through an earpiece, I asked her what was going on, she pushed me back and down the stairs. Melissa covered her mouth, while Inko and Hatsume grimaced. All Might looked shocked for a moment before he regained his composure. What happened next? She told me about what her life was like before UA. How she was kicked out of her house and how nobody, not even heroes, came to her aid. All Might lowered his head and shook his head. He certainly knew that there were heroes who weren't exactly heroic, but to think there would be heroes who would turn away at the sight of an abandoned child. Then, she told me how Stain found her, took her in, and taught her his messed up worldview. And then, she said the thing that caused me to transform into that thing. Midoriya paused, and turned to Hatsum. The reason Stain attacked you and blinded you. It was Mina's idea. Hatsum's eyes widened in disbelief, while All Might, Melissa, and Inko exchanged horrified looks. When she told me that, something snapped inside of me, Midoriya looked at his hand. I felt such an unyielded rage, such an unbridled fury, that I let out a screech and just, completely lost control of myself, until you, hugged me out of it. Hatsum laughed as she and Midoriya blushed at the memory. Inko and Melissa exchanged, while All Might raised an eyebrow. What happened after that? We evacuated with the rest of our classmates while the teachers took care of the hero killer. Hatsum scratched her head. Although we were told they were helped by a student before All Might arrived and sent him straight to Tartarus. Melissa chuckled nervously. Yeah, that student was me. Everyone gasped, except All Might, who facepalmed. You really hate keeping secrets, don't you? Loathe it, in fact, Melissa quipped, getting an odd look from Midoriya. Anyway, to explain myself, I was sent there by Uncle Might's orders. You told my little Melissa to do what? Inko snapped, standing up and using her shoe as a club to repeatedly hit the unfazed All Might. Why would you send her to do something so dangerous, you dinosaur? Melissa, do you want to explain this, or should I? All Might asked, trying to block Inko's shoe barrage. Inko stopped her assault and everybody turned to Melissa, who inhaled deeply and explained. Uncle Might suffered a devastating injury while fighting his archnemesis years ago. Now the left side of his body is severely damaged, and some of his internal organs are broken beyond repair. With his failing health, he's been looking for someone to inherit his quirk, inherit his role as the symbol of peace, and that inheritor is me. Midoriya's eyes widened. Wait a minute, so, you're telling me, that All Might gave you his quirk? How's that even possible? Long story short, my quirk is one that has been passed down from generation to generation, building on its power in order to become the ultimate weapon to keep peace in the world, and destroy the ultimate villain. All Might turned to Melissa and smiled. With my failing health, I had to find someone to inherit one for all, and continue my work. And after saving young Midoriya, I remember a young quirkless girl I met many years ago, and I asked her if she'd be willing to take my quirk. Melissa blushed and smiled. And she said yes. Admittedly without thinking things too well, but she still said yes. Then, the emaciated man turned to Midoriya. But of course, I also have to give you credit, young Midoriya. I wouldn't have even thought of asking young Melissa to inherit one for all if it wasn't for you. Really? How? You said it yourself, didn't you? What's the point of giving power to someone who already has power? Why not give power to someone who's powerless, I think. It was that comment that made Midoriya remember the first time he met All Might, right after he saved him from falling after his wings vanished, and mere seconds after appearing for the first time too. He remembers asking him what he thought of quirkless people, how he said he thought they were awesome, and then his ridiculous question of what he'd do if he found a way to give a quirkless person a quirk. Well, given the current situation, it wasn't really that ridiculous anymore. Wait, there's something I still don't get, Hatsum blurted. If Melissa inherited All Might's quirk, how come All Might still seems to have his quirk? Did he just give her a piece of it? No, she inherited the whole thing. I'm just running on leftover embers, All Might hastily explained. Anyway, young Melissa, could you please continue? Right, so, I fought Stain to a standstill, and eventually he paralyzed me with his quirk. That was when Uncle Might, in a super buff form covered in shadows, appeared out of nowhere and punched the villain straight to Tartarus. Yeah, what was that form all about? Hatsum asked. I think I may know the answer. Inko turned to All Might. Did you just so happen to take a pair of pills the principal called gadgets? Yup, in fact, he said you were the one who made them. Inko rubbed her forehead. I told that polar mouse to ask me first before using any of my gadgets. Well, Mrs. Midoriya, I think we can both agree that Principal Nezu just does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. All Might scratched the back of his head. And, he wanted me to ask you if you could make another pair. Oh, so he uses my gadget without permission, but he can't even get enough courage to ask me himself to make another pair. Inko rolled her eyes. Is there anything else this dear, Principal Nezu, has decided to do on his own? I think that's the angriest I've ever seen you, Mom. She has reason to be angry, though, Hatsum stated, folding her arms. Yeah, any inventor that respects themselves would never approve of their inventions being used without their permission, Melissa added. The girls exchanged understanding looks, and All Might butted in. Actually, there's one thing he decided to do. Everyone turned to the lanky man, and he took a deep breath before revealing. He's going to move up the UA Sports Festival. Meanwhile, at the dead of night, a humanoid figure sat on top of a large mansion, pulling the lotus position as the moon shined behind them. My lady. The figure stood up and turned around to see a maid standing in the middle of the roof, holding a calm expression as she approached her. Your mother has requested me to take you to sleep. Tomorrow's a school day, and if your grades or performance were to drop. Suddenly, the figure spread a pair of pitch black wings with white tips, causing the maid to shut up. She promptly retracted her wings, and stood up. I understand her concern. I'll go to sleep soon. Just let me meditate a little longer. The figure turned around, the moonlight shining on half of her face to reveal a long bang, a large black ponytail, a black neck, and red eyes. I want to mentally prepare myself for whatever comes next. Midoriya, Hatsum, and Melissa sat down at the train heading to UA, the trio looking at the ceiling as they thought about the upcoming sports festival. The UA Sports Festival, Midoriya remarked. I still can't believe we're going to have one of those in only 2 weeks. And I can't believe your mom not only beat up All Might with a shoe, but said all of those things to the principal. Hatsum folded her arms. Your mom's freaking amazing, Midoriya. Hey, sorry to butt in, but I have a question, Melissa blurted. This might make you think lesser of me, but what exactly is the UA Sports Festival? Well, if I remember correctly. Hatsum, let me explain it, Midoriya told the pink-haired girl before turning to Melissa. The UA Sports Festival is an annual event where the first, second, and third years of all courses of UA compete in a series of events in order to show the heroes of the world what they're capable of. Melissa chirped up. Oh, so it's like a publicity stunt for the students. Hatsum flashed a thumbs up and nodded, while Midoriya scratched the back of his head and shook it. The confusion coming from Melissa made her ask an additional question. Well, what exactly happens in it? The sports festival is divided in 3 events, 2 random ones, and a final event that's a tournament between the last 16 students, Midoriya answered. The students who get in the first, second, and third place get a medal delivered by a hero, while everybody else gets bragging rights. Which is the best kind of rights in my opinion. Hatsum beamed. Although, you probably won't get to know what they feel like. Why's that? Because you're obviously going to ace the entire thing. Melissa blinked twice. I mean, think about this. You have one of the strongest quirks I've ever seen. And I think Midoriya can agree with me that even with his transformed state, he wouldn't be a match for you. To be fair, my transformed state is still imperfected, and I need to get a better handle for it, Midoriya argued, scratching the back of his head. I still agree. I feel like, even with a transformation I can decently control, I wouldn't be able to beat you. Melissa slyly smiled and got an idea, which she whispered to Midoriya's ear. Well, guess once you get a better handle of it, we should give your theory a shot. The train stopped, and Melissa was the first to leave, followed by Midoriya and Hatsum. The duo remained right at the gate, while Melissa continued to walk, folding her arms behind her back and, unbest known to the duo, holding a smile on her face. Hey, Midoriya, what did Melissa tell you? She told me that once I get a better handle of my transformation, that we should test my theory that I wouldn't be able to beat her. Midoriya scratched his chin. I think that means she wants me to fight her in my transformed state. Well, technically speaking, she got her quirk because of you, so maybe that's her way of thanking you for it. Hatsum shrugged. That's just an idea. Anyway, I should get going. Power Loader's going to get mad if I arrive late. Hatsum, wait. The girl stopped and turned to the boy. Before you leave, could I ask you to make me a gadget? She smiled. What kind of gadget? Something like a pair of boots that can let me jump real high. Midoriya scratched his head. I'd like to get something that can help me remove the limitation of having to jump off a high altitude to activate my quirk. But, if you can't. That sounds like a fun challenge. Hatsum flashed a grin and gave the guy a thumbs up. Consider it done. I should have it finished in a week, provided nothing else comes up. Midoriya smiled and blushed a little. Thanks, Hatsume. The girl gave the guy an approving nod and strolled into the school. Midoriya remained in place for a moment to behold Hatsume's cheerful figure, and enjoy the fact that the girl was smiling and just being happy in general after so long. And then a voice spoke. You like her, don't you? Midoriya turned around, flashing a look of pure hatred as he saw none other than Mina Ashido standing behind him, sporting a cocky smile. She had a slightly different uniform, too. Instead of wearing a white shirt, she was wearing a red one. There's no need to try to hide it, you're as subtle as a rabbit in heat. Midoriya fully turned around and took a deep breath. What are you doing here, Ashido? Isn't it obvious? I study here in order to become a hero, Mina scoffed. After all, wouldn't it be poetic? The apprentice of a person who only believes in true heroes goes to school with a bunch of fakers, and ends up graduating a true hero. Why weren't you expelled? Midoriya suddenly shouted. Not only did you hurt one of my classmates, but you brought the hero killer himself to campus. You should have been kicked out of UA for those facts alone. Mina walked forward, and Midoriya took a step back. This continued until Midoriya got pinned next to the wall, and Mina slammed her hand next to him. Yeah, I could have been kicked out, and then I would go on a bloody rampage, killing fake heroes left and right, to try and satiate the furious bloodlust within me, which awakened because of the fact that the only person that ever treated me with kindness, the only person I've been able to see as my family, got taken away from me. Though startled, Midoriya didn't stand down and kept glaring at the girl, who calmed down and took a deep breath before she backed down. Listen, Midoriya, you may not have noticed but I'm actually a little remorseful for what happened. Midoriya didn't budge, so Mina backed away further and saved her hands in her pockets and explained further. When I told Stain to go hunt a supporter, I wasn't actually expecting him to go through with it. After all, I was effectively telling him to go after an innocent teenager. I never thought he'd do it. Sadly, I was wrong. But you said that when he did it quite well. Midoriya narrowed his eyes. So even if you feel sorry for it, you still enjoyed it to an extent, didn't you? Mina smirked. I'd be lying if I said the idea of someone being willing to go so far as to cripple and maybe kill another person, just because I asked them, didn't bring a smile to my face. Midoriya huffed and walked through the gate, keeping his pace steady as he heard Mina shout. Hey, it's rude to leave a beautiful girl talking. The guy turned around to tell something to her face, but he was instead met by a smug smirk, confirming she said that stuff just to get a rise out of him. Not wanting to fall into another trap, Midoriya closed his eyes, covered his ears, and began walking faster. And then he bumped into someone. Sorry, I wasn't. The boy flinched when he heard something spread, and waited a couple seconds before he opened his eyes, and saw that he had crashed into what looked like a tall girl, at least from what he could see beyond the large black wings spread wide. Her black wings retracted, and she turned around to face the boy. Her most striking features were her black neck in an otherwise normal skin, red piercing eyes, large ponytail with a long bang, and her black wings with white tips. Her wings and her neck, does she have a black swan quirk? They're a result of a mutation. Midoriya flinched. What? You asked if I have a black swan quirk, the girl clarified, her calm expression unchanging. In truth, both the wings and my neck are the result of a mutation one of my ancestors possessed. My quirk is something entirely different. Oh, that must means he was mumbling the entire time. Classic Midoriya. Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. You really shouldn't cheat on your girlfriend like that. Mina cooed as she strolled past the duo. The boy shot a glare at Mina, but the tall girl grabbed his chin and made him look at her. Don't pay attention to her, she just wants to mess with you. How about we change the topic, and try to forget she was here? Midoriya nodded. I'm Izuku Midoriya. The girl smiled. Momo Yaoyorozu. Hatsume hummed a familiar tune as she connected pieces after pieces of scrap, all while also taking a moment to mix and match some chemicals in order to create fuel for whatever she was making. Hatsume, what are you doing? The gadgeteer turned around, and saw her teacher, a man wearing a dinosaur-themed suit, Power Loader. Oh, hi, Power Loader. She chirped. Sorry, I'm just so excited that I started making random stuff again. I mean, I can see everything so clearly now. Nothing's a variety of shades of stinking pink anymore, I'm ecstatic. And I'm happy for you, but you can't use the school resources to do random stuff, Power Loader said before putting down a group of clearly unfinished gadgets. Catch up with the assignments you couldn't finish before thanks to your pink site overload, and then you can do whatever you want. Oh, actually, Power Loader, I was wondering if I could finish your assignments first, Hatsum. Then we'll discuss if you can do something else. Guess Midoriya's gadget would take a little longer. But oh well, at least Hatsum was able to work effectively again. Nothing could ruin this day. Hello, Hatsum. Her day just got ruined. She turned around, and there she was, Mina Ashido. The girl practically responsible for her needing mechanical eyes in the first place. She had to admit, the red shirt she now wore instead of the white one complemented her pink everything. This didn't stop her from stopping what she was doing and stomping up to the pink girl enraged. You have a lot of nerve to set foot here while I'm working. Oh, Hatsum, Mina giggled. It's precisely because you're here that I set foot in the first place. I need you to make a gadget for me. Mina took out some blueprints from her back and showed them to Hatsum, who snatched them and opened them to see what the heck the pink girl wanted. Once she did, though, she couldn't help but feel confused. Is this really something you want? Of course not, silly, Mina rolled her eyes. The school wants me to wear that thing as a part of my rehabilitation, until they think I'm trustworthy enough to be left alone. Until then, though, I need to wear that gadget, and I need you to make it. Hatsum lowered her eyelids. Because, since I was attacked by Stain thanks to you, limiting your powers with this gadget could be considered a type of karma. And that's always a delicious thing to deliver. But we both know that won't be enough. Mina clasped her hands and walked closer to Hatsum. After everything that happened yesterday, simply limiting my powers won't make you happy, will they? Hatsum remained silent, so Mina continued, you don't just want to limit my powers. You want to take them away. You want me to pay for every single thing I've done to you. You want me to suffer a horrible downfall, initiated by you and you alone, which you will watch with utter glee from your high throne, sitting next to your dear old boyfriend, Izuku Midoriya. Hatsum flinched and, without thinking about it, slapped Mina. Hard enough to leave a handprint. Though both girls and all 2 people in the support room were shocked by this action, Mina quickly recovered and smirked. That's quite a good hand you got there. I bet if you were to hit Midoriya with it, he'd get the hint and stop cheating on you. Hatsum honestly wanted to slap Mina again, but her curiosity overpowered her anger this time. What are you talking about? Shortly after you left him at the gate, I saw him talking with a girl from my class, Mina revealed, her smile gaining a hint of malice as she added, and not just any girl, but a girl with black swan wings and a black neck. Another person with a swan-type quirk. Hatsum pondered out loud. Mina shook her head. Not exactly. You see, the black neck and wings are a mutation she inherited from one of her ancestors. Her actual quirk is called creation. It allows her to convert the lipids inside her body into objects, as long as she knows the atomic composition of said object. And also, this is going to sound really strange. Hatsum folded her arms. Whatever strange thing Mina would say next, she was confident it wouldn't surprise her. She's both lightweight, yet heavyweight. Hatsum was surprised. Okay, let me explain. Because of her inherited mutation, her bones are partially hollow and her body, in general, is lightweight. However, in order to make her quirk somewhat useful, she has thicker layers of fat around her body, mostly on the nice places like chest and the butt, in order to make her heavyweight enough to possess enough lipids to make creation somewhat useful. Hatsum failed to see how that really explained anything, but this was something she'd felt much more comfortable talking to the actual user, rather than staying it over here. Fine, I'll get your gadget done by the end of the day, she finally spoke. Come to the support department before you leave once classes are over, okay? Yup. Now, one more question before I leave. Hatsum groaned. What more could she even say? Just tick off and let the girl pick up the pieces of her life. It's about the sports festival. Okay, now she definitely had her attention. You see, it's such an important event, and with all the world watching, I'm pretty sure both you and Midoriya are going to give it your all to reach the end and win the tournament, just like everyone else. But I wonder, would you be able to hurt him? Hatsum narrowed her eyes, and without thinking, hissed, I can hurt you. Oh ho ho, Is that a challenge? Mina asked in return, seemingly unfazed by the threat. Hatsum calmed down enough to scan her surroundings, Mineta and Power Loader looking at her in shock, while Mina looked at her with a smug smile. After looking around a little more, she took a deep breath and turned to Mina. The sports festival is a chance to prove to the heroes of the world what we at UA are capable of. After Stain's attack, however, this particular festival is important, as it's our chance to show the world that even after an attack by the most infamous hero killer in Japan, we'll stand up and continue advancing to our ambitions. That's not what I see. In fact, I don't think that's most people will see. Mina lowered her eyelids. I think they, like me, will see this as UA's poor attempt at trying to distract people from their failure to protect their students, by putting those same, still shell-shocked students through a series of fights, in a hopeless attempt to try better prepare them for the next, inevitable assault. Hatsum clenched her fist. Whatever they think, this is our chance to prove that we. Why are you talking in plural when the only person in this room that has anything to prove? Mina poked Hatsum's nose. Is you. That's enough, Ashido. Power Loader exclaimed, butting in the conversation. Go back to your classroom before I call Principal Nezu. TSK, fine, party pooper. Mina turned back to Hatsum and smiled. See you at the sports festival, Hatsum. I sure hope you put a good show. Mina left the support room, and Power Loader took Hatsum back to her spot to work on her gadgets. Even then, she still looked at the door before she turned back to the unfinished contraptions, with one thing left clear in her mind, a singular goal. Beat Mina at the sports festival. Class 1A were about to head down for some hero basics training, and they were getting ready to head to the training ground. Melissa's shield was only different in the sense that she decided to take some time to look at her reflection in her mirror, now with her hero costume equipped. She wore a red, sleeveless bodysuit with golden highlights around her chest and legs, with silver, metallic kneecaps and shoulder pads. She wore a pair of white boots with red undersides, each possessing two jets that could release energy to allow her to fly, and red gauntlets with golden symbols on their sides. Finally, she had a red helmet with a white visor that covered her eyes, a pair of mechanical earmuffs attached at the sides, and a black choker that was really just cosmetic. Still surprised, Melissa turned around and saw Uraraka, also in her hero costume, standing nearby and looking at her with a smile. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Melissa looked at her palm and clenched it. I've wore this suit a couple of times already, and yet I still can't believe that I'm actually wearing it. Heck, I still can't believe I'm still part of the hero course at all. It's okay, I thought this would happen after I read about you online, Uraraka replied, continuing as Melissa blushed slightly. You were working to be an inventor so you could create stuff for heroes, so you probably never imagined yourself ever training to become one. You read about me online. Melissa pointed at herself. Yep, you're quite famous like that. Uraraka grabbed Melissa's hand with her own. And about the fact you still haven't gotten used to it, don't worry, that's not weird at all. It took me months to process the fact I got into the hero course at all. Melissa smiled and nodded. Thanks, that relieves me a little. Uraraka released Melissa's hand and scanned her. Your costume's really cool, too. I don't know, I feel like there's something missing, Melissa scanned Uraraka. And besides, your hero costume isn't too shabby either. I know, right, and the best part of it is that I got to keep it without any of Yaoyorozu's modifications. Uraraka proudly boasted. Can you believe she wanted me to wear a bird mask? I mean, a mask or something to protect your head and cover your face could be helpful, but a bird mask. Melissa put her hands on her hips. Speaking of her, what exactly is her hero costume anyway? Uraraka turned back and winced. Well, Melissa turned, and she winced as well. Yaoyorozu was wearing a black, sleeveless, backless halter-neck dress with the belly exposed in a diamond cutout, black gloves with white fingers, black high-heeled boots, and a black surgical mask that resembled a bird's beak. Tied to her waist was what looked like a dictionary. Yaoyorozu, I'm not one to talk, but what's up with your outfit? Melissa couldn't help but ask as the bird-themed heroine walked to the duo. Are you trying to fuse a prom dress and a plague doctor together? Funnily enough, that was the idea I was going for, Yaoyorozu answered, her voice slightly muffled by the mask. However, I wasn't quite sure how to make it work, so I asked Tokiyami for pointers. Against my wishes, mind you, Uraraka blurted sternly. I mean seriously, we're in the middle of a trust crisis between everybody after what Mina did, and you decide to have your hero costume be an all-black dress with a weird mask. That's going to get you weird looks everywhere. Perhaps, but it's the most fitting version of my hero costume considering my inherited mutation. Yaoyorozu folded her arms. Besides, you have to understand some of our classmates don't exactly look heroic either. Yeah, but yours just seems more eye-catching than the rest of them. Melissa scratched her chin. Maybe if you added another color on top of the monochromatic scheme, like blue or red. Blue maybe, but definitely not red, Uraraka vetoed. Black and red are considered the most villainous combination of colors, especially if they're placed in unnerving patterns. If Yaoyorozu were to put some red without taking care of her overkill of black, she'd definitely be considered a potential traitor. Interesting, I'll have to keep that in mind then. Yaoyorozu turned around and crouched down. Anyhow, I just wanted to say goodbye before I went to check on Class 1B. But Hero Basic class is about to start, Melissa pointed out. Besides, aren't Class 1B training at the school's backyard? Uraraka asked. Yaoyorozu nodded. Indeed, and I want to see how a certain Swan Knight is doing. I feel like he's going to need help. The black-masked heroine spread her wings and flew away, leaving Melissa and an upset Uraraka behind. Swan Knight, Melissa parroted, scratching her cheek. It's a medieval tale. The girls turned around and saw a familiar face approaching them, Denki Kaminari, the blonde class clown of Class 1A. The basic tale goes like this. A damsel is in danger, and a mysterious rescuer sometimes a knight appears in a swan rowed boat to become her protector, the only condition he gives being that he must never be asked his name. That kinda sounds like Midoriya, minus the riding a swan-driven boat part. Melissa folded her arms. If I remember correctly, he went to the beach one day with this girl named Hatsum, and declared his intention to protect her while I was helping upgrading her robotic eyes. Or, just like the story. How romantic, Uraraka said, clasping her hands cheerfully. But wait, why would Yaoyorozu want to see Midoriya, if she's really talking about him? Well, I don't like heading into the gutter, but both she and Midoriya are around the age where they'd like to experiment, if you know what I mean. Kaminari folded his arms. She most likely doesn't know about this Hatsum girl, so she probably wants to see if Midoriya can become her mate. Uraraka and Melissa exchanged concerned expressions. Midoriya, in his usual analytical ways, was looking at the training of the rest of his classmates and taking notes on what could and couldn't improve. First, he saw Yanagi levitate a group of small objects, then shoot them forward like projectiles, which were easily deflected by Oasis' rod. His thoughts were to have her try to lift heavier objects, but then he remembered her limit, so he decided to keep this one on pause. Then, he turned to Kodai, who increased the size of her bow staff until it was twice her own height. She tried to swing it at Kendo, but the resulting weight tipped off Kodai and made her fall back comically. His thoughts were to try a smaller size next time. Next was Tsunotori, who ran around Kamakiri while shooting a couple horns at a time, each deflected by his mandibles quite easily. He didn't have much thoughts in this part, if only because there were no clear things Tsunotori could improve on besides speed. After that was Komori, who released spores on the ground to create mushrooms just as Shishida rushed at her. The resulting mushroom was big enough to grab them both, and they got stuck in its bouncy head. His thoughts were that he wished he had been her partner instead. That honestly looked like fun. The last girl he looked at was Tokage, who split off her arms and legs and hid behind a pillar as she made her legs and arms bother Subaraba. His thoughts were that she could benefit from not playing with her food as much. Actually, another thought popped up. Was he forgetting someone else? Midoriya. The boy flinched, turned around, and he was met with Shiozaki's disapproving, pouty face. Hi, Shiozaki. Do you need something? Yeah, training. Shiozaki folded her arms and looked elsewhere. Vlad King set us up as partners, but all you've been doing is looking at the other girls. Are you ogling them? What? No, that's not what I'm doing at all. Midoriya replied, catching a glimpse of Kendo's strategy before he snapped back at Shiozaki. I'm just interested in seeing how they're improving, that's all. Listen, Midoriya, I've researched this stuff, and I get the feeling it has something to do with how swans mate for life and you're looking for a mate or something, Shiozaki confessed, possibly to successfully get the boy's attention. So, I don't care if you start ogling girls 24/7, but when you're paired up with one for an assignment, the least you could do is keep your ogling to your partner. Midoriya flinched and took a step back. Oh ho, is some drama happening right now? And that only made it worse. Midoriya looked at his back, and he saw Kendo approaching him, alongside the rest of the girls, and Monoma, for some reason. Gee guys, I can explain. Midoriya has been staring at us for a while. Tokage smiled slyly, nudging Kendo's shoulder. Do you think he's been checking us out? At the third nudge, Kendo grabbed her shoulder and slumped, groaning in pain. Oh, sorry, was that the shoulder that got burnt? I didn't mean it. It's okay, Tokage, I should have gone. You do that. Kendo stood back up and took a deep breath. As for you, Midoriya, if something's bothering you, just tell us and we'll help you. Especially if it's about romantic stuff, because that's going to tough to deal with on your own. Monoma shook his head and shrugged. As heroes in training, we need to focus our efforts into becoming heroes. There's no room for silly little things like romance. Kendo rolled her eyes. And yet you always find time to piss off Class 1A by acting all smug and superior. That's a rivalry. It helps foster a desire to surpass one another, which will motivate us to put more effort into our studies. Tokage flashed a toothy grin. And what if the rivalry was done with someone you loved? Monoma opened his mouth, paused, and closed it as he got lost in thought, scratching his chin as he walked to a bench to better articulate his thoughts. At this, Tokage told Midoriya. Quick, Midoriya, talk while Monoma's distracted. The boy flinched, and with the girls all surrounding him, he twiddled his fingers and blushed as he explained, I've been feeling strange lately. I can still analyze heroes, quirks, and strategies like normal, but when I'm here, IICC can't help but keep an eye on you girls. That's called being horny, Tokage blurted. You can deal with it. Bye. Shiozaki slapped Tokage with her vines. What? No vine up my butt. Last person I did that to turned out to be the psychopathic apprentice of Stain. Shiozaki folded her arms. I like to think that helped discover her true nature, so I wanna save it in case another potential traitor shows up. Tokage grinned. So you're not against doing that again? Shiozaki blushed and gritted her teeth, prompting Midoriya to get in between. I don't think it's horniness. At least, it might be related. Komori tilted her head. What's that supposed to mean? Well, I think if I was, horny, I'd be thinking about your, well, you know, the erogenous things. Midoriya stammered. But instead, I'm thinking about whether I could spend the rest of my life with you, or if things would work out, or how people could see us together. That does sound pretty strange. Tokage scratched her chin. Are you sure you didn't think about our breasts or our butts at least once? Before Tokage could continue, a tower of vines sprouted from underneath her and left tangled in the air, a pair of vines covering her mouth as everybody turned to an enraged Shiozaki. If anybody says perverted stuff like that, you'll be next. She snapped. Midoriya, finish your explanation before we get to that point. Right. I was more or less finished, though. Midoriya lowered his head and twiddled his fingers again. I can't help but effectively ogle you, not out of sexual desire, but I think a desire to see if I could spend my life with any of you. You're looking for a mate, then. Everybody looked up, and they saw none other than Yaoyorozu, flapping her wings as she looked down at the ground-bound heroes in training. Unfortunately, her arrival coincided with Monoma's return, though his attention was quickly taken by the flying black swan girl. Midoriya, do you happen to have a sister? No, I'm an only child. Midoriya shook his head. This is Momo Yaoyorozu, the heiress of the Yaoyorozu family. Monoma exclaimed, giving the boy a baffled look. What the hell is she doing here? Shiozaki slapped Monoma for his language. I'm here because I wanted to see Midoriya again, to talk about something private, Yaoyorozu said, pressing a button on her mask that increased her volume so the ground-bound students could hear her. Now, Midoriya, get up here. What? Spread your wings and fly up here. That's not how my quirk works, Yaoyorozu, you should know already. Then find another way to activate it. Yaoyorozu raised an eyebrow. Or should I go get Uraraka to help you once again? He doesn't need Uraraka's help. Midoriya turned around and saw Kendo grow her hand to its biggest size before planting it on the ground. Come on, Midoriya, get up. But Kendo, that's the arm that got stinged by Mina, Midoriya pointed out. Won't it hurt if you try throwing me up? Kendo put her free hand around her arm, right on the spot that got burnt, but she quickly flashed a reassuring smile. It's okay, Midoriya, I'll be fine. Midoriya frowned, seeing right through Kendo's lie. He scanned the other girls, until he eventually spotted Shiozaki, looking at the airborne student with a disapproving glare. Shiozaki, he blurted, getting her attention. Can you make a vine platform high enough to let me activate my quirk? Shiozaki hummed. I used up much of my hair keeping Tokage in place, but I think I still have enough roots to make you a platform. The vine-haired girl clasped her hands and planted her hair on the ground, with it emerging shortly from underneath Midoriya to create a platform that was as tall as a small building. Midoriya jumped off, and his swing sprouted as soon as he did, allowing him to fly up to Yaoyorozu while Shiozaki undid the platform. All right, Yaoyorozu, I'm here, he said as soon as he reached the bird-masked student. What do you want? Yaoyorozu turned off her mask's amplification option, and she flew slightly closer to Midoriya. The thing that you're going through is what happens to most swans when they reach sexual maturity. Midoriya flew back. Hey now, my quirk might be swan-themed, but it doesn't turn me into a swan. That doesn't matter. There are studies that indicate that certain quirks themed after animals can cause their user to exhibit that animal's behavior, even if the quirk isn't a mutant type, Yaoyorozu responded, flying closer to Midoriya once again. For example, my classmate Tokiyami's quirk has nothing to do with his mutation, and he shows bird behavior from time to time. Midoriya backed away again, chuckling and blushing a little. That's something I'd like to see, actually. Suddenly, Yaoyorozu lunged forward, grabbed Midoriya's arms and pulled him closer to herself before trapping him in a hug, with his face landing right in between her chest. His wings dissipated into light, and the boy immediately hugged Yaoyorozu back in sheer fear of falling. Midoriya, Monoma exclaimed in shock before he turned to Kendo. I have an idea, but I need your help, Kendo. Kendo nodded. Just tell me what to do and you can consider it done. Back with Midoriya and Yaoyorozu, the boy breathed and blushed heavily as the girl looked down at him, surprisingly calm and collected despite the compromising position they were both in. I see, so your wings dissipate when you feel too flustered. Yaoyorozu lowered her eyelids. I probably shouldn't be happy about that, but at least you won't back away from me anymore. Why Yaoyorozu, are you crazy? Midoriya exclaimed, lifting his head from the girl's breasts. I don't know if I can activate my quirk again so soon. If I fall now, I'll definitely die. The bird-masked student rolled her eyes. Calm down, will you? I'm not going to drop you. I'm just going to tell you what I know, ask you a question, and whatever you answer, I'll fly you back to the ground, understood? Why yes. Alright, so, when swans reach their sexual maturity, they start looking for someone to become their mate. As you probably know, swans mate for life. Once they find a romantic partner, they stay with that partner for the rest of their lives, or until one of them dies. But more often than not, they stay together, till death does them apart. Yaoyorozu tightened the hug. You and I are both at that age, Midoriya. These black swan features aren't the only thing I inherited from my ancestor, I also inherited some of that behavior. Including the desire for a mate for life. Midoriya frowned. And you want me to be that mate? Let me be blunt, Midoriya, just like you, I haven't been able to take my eyes off my classmates. If we don't find someone to become our mate, we'll keep doing this dance all the way to adulthood. And when adulthood comes, we won't just stop at analysis. We're going to grow bolder, more riskier and, let's just raunchier. Now Midoriya was officially scared, just what the hell was going through Yaoyorozu's head to make her say that? And why was she pressing his head against her breasts again? I'm looking for a mate, and judging from the way you looked at your female classmates earlier, so are you. Holy crap, she saw that. How? So, I want you to make it easier for everybody, and become my mate. I can pay for your expenses, buy you neat little trinkets, and the only thing I ask from you is that you stay by my side for the rest of our lives. That's kind of a big deal, Yaoyorozu. So, what do you say? Midoriya had no time to answer, for Monoma was sent flying straight to Yaoyorozu, successfully startling her into blocking the attack, but releasing Midoriya, who was caught by Monoma as they both began falling to the ground. Yaoyorozu followed them, but before she could catch them, something happened. Swan wings sprouted from Monoma's back, and he flew both Midoriya and himself to safety. I see, so you can copy the quirks of others, Yaoyorozu said as she got on the ground. But most importantly, you interrupted me while Midoriya and I were talking. Right after you flustered him and forced him to stay at your side or fall to his death. Monoma snapped as he released Midoriya, and walked up to the bird-masked girl. I don't know how things work in Class 1A, but here at Class 1B, that's a big no-no. Yaoyorozu grabbed Monoma's shoulder and pushed him aside. She walked straight towards Midoriya, who had just gotten up before he was startled, falling back on the ground again. Midoriya, I'm still waiting your answer. The boy mumbled and fumbled his words repeatedly, looking practically everywhere but Yaoyorozu in an attempt to regain his composure. I see, you need time to think about it. Very well, I have hero basic training to get to anyway. Yaoyorozu spread her wings and got ready to fly. But I expect you to have an answer by the time the sports festival rolls around. Midoriya flinched, remembering that event was coming very soon, and Yaoyorozu plucked one of her feathers and handed it to the boy. I'll be waiting patiently for your answer, Izuku Midoriya. Yaoyorozu blasted off moments before Midoriya's classmates could catch her, and as she flew away, Midoriya looked at her, then glanced back at the black feather she left behind, curious as of the purpose of the gift. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.